Krishna. I wanted to talk a little bit on causality. Why this is happening? Why does that happen? We ask ourselves these questions all the time. When an aircraft falls from the sky, immediately the question is how it is happening. How is it possible? When somebody falls sick all of a sudden, we ask this question, how is it possible? Somebody dies, we ask the question, a young person, well, how is it possible? I remember my brother, he was only 7 years old, and he died of cancer. It was horrible, brain cancer, brain tumor. And one Indian doctor, Professor Sundar Papa, he in Indians everywhere, this is now 1952 in Germany. He was the head of the clinic, and he took a saw and cut this open, took a piece out, put it back. 3 times in a row, because the cancer came back all the time. And so, we would have been well advised to let him die in the beginning. It would have been better for him. Because his suffering for the next 3 years was unimaginable. But when he's so attached to the child, parents are very attached to the child, and so give another try, let's hope for it. But ultimately he died. And so the priest came. In Christian beliefs, the body is not burnt the same day, it is put into a coffin. Into one room is cleared in the house, at least in Ireland and Germany, European places. And so the priest came and I asked, I was 10 years, I asked this question, Father, why did my brother have to suffer like that? Why? Where's God in all this? It's a reasonable question. And he said, I don't know. So said, but in the Bible it says, as you sow, you reap. Put a banana seed into the ground, apple seed, there's not a pear tree coming out, an apple tree comes out. According to the cause, the effect. And so he said, what has he done? He was just a child. That is to suffer. I said, there's justice here. I said, I can't answer this. I'm sorry, I can't answer this question. And so when he said that in my mind, in the back of my mind, I didn't say it. I may have mumbled under my threat, under my breath, that there is no God. The simple answer. Everything is just random. Somebody has everything, somebody has nothing, somebody is beautiful, somebody is ugly, somebody is thin, somebody is fat, somebody is dumb, somebody is intelligent, somebody is this, somebody that. That's the only conclusion, or randomness by chance. But the fact is that nothing is by chance in this universe. And for example, if you take a watch, this watch, and I take this watch into many pieces, maybe 50 pieces. I put it into a box. You shake the box. How long you have to shake till you watch again? Impossible. Never. You can shake up to the end of Kali Yuga. You never will watch again. It needs an intelligence to put the watch together. The human eye has 20,000 components. I don't know if it's true, but that according to science, 20,000 components. How do all this, how does it work without somebody, higher intelligence behind it? You can ask yourself what's the phenomena of the whole creation. How is it? And one may say by evolution, one living entity gradually by adjustment into the right direction, different kind of species occur. That's a general evolutionary answer. But how does an ugly worm turn into a butterfly? It is not gradually, this is a very radical change. From an ugly caterpillar to what is it actually? It is a fingerprint of a higher intelligence. It's a fingerprint. There have been somewhere you need a fingerprint. There's a fingerprint right there. That there is a higher intelligence behind it. We cannot imagine what it is not possible. I mean, people have all kinds of all kinds of conceptions of higher intelligence, but what exactly it is we cannot know because our intelligence is very limited. We are restricted in our intelligence to understand the phenomena. It's like, for example, a bull. If you try to preach Bhagavad Gita from a bull or a donkey, you can speak for the next 100,000 of years, you never understand because his intelligence is restricted, he cannot understand. So in the same way, as human beings, our intelligence is restricted. We can only see so much of the transcendental phenomena. Only so much. It's like if you work in a company, factory, for example, there's people into the car, they have little key card, right? They stick it into the slot in the door. Now, from the director to the general workforce, they all have the same looking key card. It looks the same, because it goes into the same slot. The ability is different. The director can go all the way to the top floor, or the members of the board. Their key card functions from the shop floor all the way to the top floor, right? Because their accessibility is expanded. They're simple. And if you're very fortunate, you can go all the way to the penthouse of the director, if you have that sort of accessibility. So in the creation, everything is a matter of accessibility. If you put a mouse here in this room, he will try to find a cheese or something eatable, and he finds this is not very practical. So you go somewhere else with the cheeses, because that's her world. The end of a mouse's life is to find the fridge and ultimately the cheese. And so in the same way, our accessibility to reality is extremely limited. And so we cannot understand higher phenomena. We cannot. We may see the effect of higher phenomena, but we cannot understand what causes the action. And God is a cause. Whether you call God Allah, Yahweh, Yahweh, Krishna, Rama, it doesn't matter. God is unlimited and has unlimited names. How many names do you have? You have
2 names.
2. 1, 2, 3. I have also 3. My wife is hundreds of names. So, even human beings have many names. Absolutely, there's millions of names. And there's no question of fighting this name, that name. The sun shines over every country, and in every country there's a different name. In Germany, the Sonne; in France, Le Soleil; in English, the sun; in India, Surya; in Italy, Sol; in Spain, Solo. So there are many names for the same subject, but the subject is the same. There's only one sun. And so in the same way, there's only one supreme being, and he's completely, how do you say, achintya. Achintya means he is inconceivable to us. And so the small conceptions people have that God with a long beard, I mean, you can look for God in the clouds. There's a long beard for time, for millions of years, you won't find it. Because that's a very simplistic concept. It's a childish concept. Child has some idea of the father, but he doesn't understand really the father is doing his work and what he's thinking and all that. He can't, because he doesn't access to that. In due course of time, he will have access. So the fact is that spiritual life is increasing the accessibility of truth. According he turns to me, I reward him accessibility. You cannot go to the highest floor of perfection if you are qualified. You need to qualify. Otherwise you have no access. Donkey is unqualified to understand his lecture. He's a donkey. And all he knows, where's grass, where's grass. That's all. Cows also. Human being has a potential. Only the human being that has the potential to increase the accessibility of his realization, of his appreciation of the absolute truth. Only you, no other living being is able to do that. So the whole idea of the spiritual life is to get more access, to ultimately to be able to see God in everything, even in the atom. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that by his inconceived, I'm in the heart of the atom. What is it? Andantarashtra paramanu triyantarastam. I'm in the small, in the atom, in the nucleus of the atom. And the electron and proton, they only circumambulate the neutron as much as the Earth circumambulates the Sun, the Earth, the Moon circumambulates, etc. It's only processed by supreme energy that we have no idea of. And so the priest could not answer my question because he simply doesn't know. But there is an answer. And so in due course of time, I read one book in Buddha when I was 50 or something. There I saw that as much as Christians or Muslims or Jews believe that in future life I get a result of this life, so the same way this life is nothing but the result of the previous life. By karma, by our deeds, we enjoy and we suffer. Why do you have this bandage around your arm?
My karma.
That's right. You must have done something
Yes.
in your previous life, something. Because the law of karma is extremely precise. I give you an example. My father, as a young boy, he was eating sandwiches, he told me. And so his friend was an atheist. He took his sandwich and kicked it over the fence of the school. My father said, don't do that. But he was religious. Bread is given by God. He was our daily bread. How can you do that? So the men laughed. 45 years later, they met in a concentration camp in Estonia, North Germany. They were political prisoners. My father smuggled Jewish people out of the country and other things. It was political, the boy was convicted. So when, at one stage, this man, because they were starving, the only food was potato soup, basically speaking, with a little bit of fat, that's all. And bread, potato soup, and fat, that's all. And people died, 40,000 people were dying over something like 15 years as a concentration camp. The concentration camp was not even very big, maybe 5-6 football places together. They all died, or were worked to death, or shot, or whatever. It was horrific. And so he was dying. So they brought him to the, how do you say in English, the Lazaret, the place where infirmary, they brought him to infirmary, and my father was sitting beside him, and his life was ebbing out. The doctor came, and he said, looked at him and said, one slice of bread would have saved this man. And the guy looked at his eyes and said, Wilhelm, to my father, do you remember this? Do you remember? My father said, yes. And he fell into his death. Because there's a saying in English language, the mills of God grind very slow, but very precise. Very precise. Every action has a reaction. It's even material law. Every action has a reaction. In our lives also. If you're doing good, you will have a good result. If you have accidents, if you have pain, if you're born in a war, in a concentration camp, don't think of this by accident. Everybody has to suffer the reaction. If you experience violence in this life, it is because of violence committed in your last life. That's what it is. You may cause violence to other living beings without thinking there's no result. It is. It says in the Bible even, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. You see, this material world is a place that we fell into because our own desire to be independent. In the spiritual world, everybody is depending on the Supreme. Here, everybody wants to be independent. I'm free, I do what I want, basically speaking. So that's our curse that brought us into this material world, basically speaking, a primordial disobedience. that brings the living entity soul into the material world. In the Christian Bible, there is the example of Adam and Eve. Now, the stories were insightful because they ate from the forbidden tree. They were not allowed to eat from this tree for good reason. But they did. They didn't obey. Now, Adam and Eve never existed. We ate from that forbidden tree, and that's why we're here in the material world. The material world is not an easy place to live. How many tears I have shed in my life? How many tears you have shed in your life? How many times a friend shot an arrow into my mouth? You know, it had to be pulled out. You know? And my little dog that I love so much, his name was Cello, a little girl. She had puppies, and I looked right into the dog's eyes, and the same dog hit me into the chin, into the cheek, and it didn't let loose. I took me sick. It was very painful. And then tooth has to be pulled. Or somebody loses his arm, somebody in an accident. All this happens in the presence of God. Why? He knows everything, he knows that he doesn't know. He can do everything he wants, and he's everywhere. But why does it happen? Because of our own deed. As you sow, you reap. That's the cosmic law. And so why is it that way? Well, there's an easy way to learn. Even in college, there's an easy way to learn by hearing, by learning lessons. If you don't want to hear, then you have to learn the hard way. Father tells the son, don't touch the stove. It's very hot. The son says, well, I want to touch it. Don't do that, you will burn it. I told you, but he didn't want to listen. Then you have to learn the hard way. So material world is, the basis of this material world is we learn the hard way. Not necessary, actually. If you would actually sober out our mentality and turn to spirituality, everything becomes easy. There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, Machita. Chitta means consciousness, Machita. If you direct your consciousness towards me, Machita Sarva, all difficulties of Durga, material nature, Mata Sarva, by my mercy will be resolved. What is this Durga? There's three sufferings, they're called Tapatraya. There's three sufferings that come from Durga. Adhikary, Adidevi, Adhikary. Adhikary, suffering from your own self. I drive the car to Phoenix from Dublin downtown, and I fall asleep and crash into a tree. That's my own doing. It's Adhikary. I drive to Phoenix, and all of a sudden, one redneck farmer comes out with his tractor on the right side. He's all looking left and right. And I drive up to this farmer, and he makes me suffer. And it's called Adhikary. And then the last suffering is Adhikary. I try to go against the fingers. On a winter day, all of a sudden there's a road goes back and there's an ice and I crash into the tree. I went through all the three sufferings in my life, in the car. I've seen these three car accidents in my own life. You know? And the whole thing breaks up every accident you can actually analyze in terms of Adhikary. You can analyze everything in these terms. You know? So, Machita, if you direct your consciousness towards me, Machita, Sarva Bhuvani, all difficulties that come from Durga, Adhikary, Adhikary, Mata, by my grace, is going to dissolve. This is actually the way how we resolve our problems. Our problems is not that we try to solve our own problems. We can do that, but it will not be successful ultimately. You have to have higher energy. You have to have, how do you say, shelter of Krishna's energy. Then it becomes very easy. Even death is easy if somebody is God conscious. What is that verse? It says, self-realized soul is not to be bewildered by the change of the body. And I saw this in our spiritual master, if you have Prabhupada here, you know? Yeah, you see? And he gave different kinds of explanations. One stage he said, Give you some example. Lift up his hand and ask his assistant to give him medicine. The assistant gave him medicine, and Prabhupada said, "Did you close the bottle?" I was kind of astounded. Why is it important? I said, "I forgot." And Prabhupada said, "That is your disease." He said, "All of you, you know how to open bottles, you know how to close them. You start so many new things, you don't see the consequences. Just see the environmental catastrophe we have. The oceans are polluted, the rivers are polluted, the food is polluted, the earth is polluted, the food is polluted, your body is polluted. What is it? Open bodies. Let's try this one, let's try that. That's all it is, basically speaking. Opening bodies. Let's try this one. You know? And nobody knows what he's doing ultimately, the effects of it. It has a long run. If you go into the ocean, it's full of plastic. Such a great idea people thought. Now we solved our problem. We created a huge problem. Right? Even the fishes, in the bodies of the fishes, there's plastic material that again destroys our body. So mankind is pretty good in messing up this whole planet. It's a big science and a big philosophy that creating huge problems. One problem after the other. One new invention comes up, and later they find out. And we had this what was this Contagan? It was, I forgot the purpose of the pill, but the people took this pill. Anybody's idea Contagan? This is about?
Was it thalidomide?
Huh?
Was it thalidomide you're talking about, is it? It's a pill that people took?
Contagan, can somebody look this up on this Conta? C-O-N-T-E-R, Gan. What is it for? I just have these things. Can you find it?
Yeah, it's thalidomide.
Huh?
Thalidomide it's called. Thalidomide. It's it's one of the names was Contergan, and it's an oral medication used to treat numbers of cancers and skin diseases.
I see. And as a result, children were born without arms, children were born without feet, children were born with no arms, children had their hands sticking out here, like this, and you see that from time to time when you go around, you see people like that, you know? The hands sticking out of their shoulders. This is all due to opening the body. Opening the body. Most diseases in the Western world is because of opening the body. Let's try this one, let's try that one. And even if you look at medicine, allopathic medicine, every allopathic medicine, there's a whole, if you read the piece of paper, this may be careful, this could be happening, that could be happening, that. If you take Ayurveda, which is given by Krishna himself, by, what's his name, Dhanvantari, there's never a side effect, never, you know. But Western medicine is, oh, let's try this one, let's try this one, one thing after another. The nuclear bomb was hailed as, now we know how to, we have unlimited energy. Immediately it was taken by the military and turned into a bomb, right? And now we are all afraid that Putin drops a bomb. It can happen every moment. We live in a very unsafe time. It's not like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. A very unsafe time. So one problem after another is created by modern science. They don't know what they're doing, basically. A particle accelerator in Switzerland is an underground, huge, like a, how do you say, like a circle.
It's a tunnel.
Huh?
It's an underground tunnel.
Yeah, underground tunnel. You know, something like 27 kilometers diameter.
God particle.
Halbe accelerator, particle accelerator. So what happens is the particle, due to magnetic powers, there's a magnets all around, the particles are racing faster and faster, and then there's a fork. Most go like this, but some go like this, and they're misdirected, or they fire into the incoming, right in front, like a frontal accident. And they were hoping to explain in this way the Big Bang. That was the whole idea. When they started this accelerators, many scientists after that, don't do it. He said, you can create a black hole. You can create a black hole, that hole will devour the whole cosmos. At least the Earth, Moon, it will devour it. Black hole, very dangerous. And so let's try it out. And they tried it out. And fortunately enough, Krishna protected the Earth. Because there's so many Hare Krishna devotees chanting Hare Krishna. Or many upright people in all conditions. It is not time yet, you know. So this is actually a phenomenon that you can see that mankind creates a very dark history and a very dark presence. You know, if you can't take a bath in a river, basically speaking. You know, wherever you go, there's devastation due to the intelligent human mind. And this is going on since a long time. There's a German poet, his name is Sri Radha. And he said, he wrote a poem, and this poem says, gefährlich ist den Leut zu wecken. It is dangerous to wake up a lion. Dangerous is a tiger's tooth. Verderblich ist das Tigers Zahn. Gefährlich ist den Leut zu wecken. Verderblich ist das Tigers Zahn. The tiger's tooth is devastating. But the most horrible of all horrors is man in his madness. This is written 200 years ago. And he was a minister of environment, by the way, in the German emperor at that time, Frederick the Great. So he says, gefährlich ist den Leuten zu wecken, verderblich ist Tigers Zahn. Das Schrecklichste von allen Schrecken ist der Mensch in seinem wahren Man is madness. More than no animal behaves like we do. They take a prey, that's it. We are not satisfied with that. Food is not satisfied unless every Ukrainian person is dead, basically speaking. Hitler, millions of people have died because of the madness of one man. It's madness. You know? We are becoming mad by association with matter. Matter makes, that's what we say, what is the matter? This matter is a problem. What is the problem? What is the matter? This matter is a problem for this good soul. And the more we go into the matter, the more we run into it, we run away from God. We run deeper and deeper and deeper into the material world. There's a story of come inside, you're welcome, we're waiting for you, Hare Krishna. Welcome to the club. In the Bible, there is a story of the prodigal son. There was a son, the father had two sons, and he was a rich man. And so one boy, he decided in the house to stay in the house of the father. He's in Sanskrit terms, Nitya Siddha, he's an eternally liberated soul. He stays in the spiritual world. The other one goes into a faraway land. He said to his father, give me my inheritance. And he went into the world and spent money left and there, and ultimately he was so poor, he had to eat out of it. Sit down, Prthu. You need a pillow?
Oh, no.
There's a pillow. Sit comfortably. Come on. Sit nicely. So after many difficulties and many errors, finally he said, my God, you know what I'm doing here. I don't have to do that. I can just go to the house of my father. He's a rich man. I don't have to work on anything. So he walks back. And it's a very interesting story. If you ask the priest, he cannot explain what that actually means. That means our fall from the spiritual world. There's a sun he stays inside, it's called Nitya Siddha. The sun who goes is Nitya Bala, conditioned by material nature. And we go through so many experiences. Life after life, Krishna gives us one chance after the other, till finally we get it. And we say, that's enough, enough is enough. I want to go back into the spiritual sky where there is no scarcity, there is no war, there's no, nobody steals, there's no, as Jesus said, Don't gather treasures on earth, where rust will eat it, moth will eat it, and robbers will take it away. Gather only treasures in heaven, that there are no thieves, no robbers, and no robbers, no thieves, no rust, and no moth. It's very simple. So we are living here in a very inhospitable atmosphere, where you have headaches, where you have, even to give birth is extremely painful. You ask every woman who had a child, it's very painful. And then you have to go to the dentist to drill you like mad. I mean, how many teeth I have in my face? How many? Huh? 6. Where are the others? They're all pulled out in the most. It looks nice. It's very Hollywood. Nylon. Very much. But it was a pain to get rid of all these bad teeth. Why? Because of sugar. I like sugar. You know, sugar destroys your teeth. That's one example of the suffering of this material body. Did you suffer in your life? Huh?
You mean emotional or physical?
Any suffering.
Uh, by God's grace, not heavy suffering.
Yeah. That's right. And sometimes He saves us.
Yeah, a couple of accidents, but by God's grace.
I was walking, I'll give you an example. I was walking in Gainesville, in Florida. It's famous for crocodiles. There are so many crocodiles or alligators that senators said we should just throw a nuclear bomb on Florida to get rid of these creatures. So I was walking there, this little path, right through the street, cars, and there's a lake, and I looked down there, it's a moon, and all of a sudden, the guy opened his mouth and ran after me. And they're very fast. He jumped out like this and ran. And I was out of my mind. Where's my phone? Anybody knows that my phone is downstairs. You have no idea how loud that is, that thing, you know. So anyway, so I ran like a headless chicken over the street. It was in this copy. Yeah. All right. That's it. 1 second, I took my hearing together. That's what happened. We get there too. It's just a matter of time. Recently, somebody gave a class in our temple in Vrndavana, India. And I was sitting there listening to this class. And I said to the devotee next to me, why is he talking about Narendra Modi all the time? What does it have to do with the class? He said, he talks about Narendra Modi. That's what happens when you get there. So anyway, I went like a headless chicken over the road, highway. One car almost, I could feel it touch me, you know? And then another one was coming. I just slammed into my freedom. The crocodile was hit in the nose. And their heart, they just went back. The man came out and said, man, if I would have come 1/10 of a second earlier, 1/10 of a second later, he would have been gone. So suffering was right on the doorstep, but I was not meant to die yet. My time was not up. When your time is up, your time is up. There's nothing you can do about it, you know. But if the time is not up, there's nothing to worry about. It's easy. So everything is working like this by action and reaction all the cruel deeds will follow you for years. You may not remember, but it will come to you. This is how people suffer. This is how people enjoy. And the priest could not give me the answer. There was a tsunami in Japan about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And there was a teleconference, and our Pope at that time, Benedict, he was asking this teleconference by a little girl from Hawaii, from Japan. Her name was Elena, but she looked like this. She was officially Chinese, but she was a Catholic Chinese, the Holy Father. You know everything. Why are all my friends dead? The same question I asked her. And she says, I thought the same thing. He said, we do not have the answer. We do not have the answer. But Jesus is protecting you, we suffer also, etc., etc. So we, rattled down theology, basically speaking. And then he said, in the end, and I have this here in my computer, but we don't have a projector. He said, the last thing is, one day you may even understand by the soul. And that's true. You just have to go into a temple, buy yourself Bhagavad Gita for £3 or whatever, and read the second chapter, you know exactly why I'm suffering. It's due to karma. Very clearly. Why cannot ordinary people answer this question? Even in religion, they cannot answer this question. Religion has to be reasonable. They can't give a reasonable answer. I ask a reasonable question, how in the presence of a kind God, who's everywhere, can do anything, everything, who's all-knowing, why had my brother to suffer like that? Please give me an answer. Why can't they give an answer? Because there's no defined concept of soul. There's no, what is the soul? In India, people know every rickshaw, whatever they tell you, somebody suffers, it is due to karma. Right? Every bhanghi will tell you. But in the West, it's all our knowledge. You can't answer in a simple question. Why? Because there's no defined concept of soul. Neither in Muslim religion, nor in Christian religion, nor in Jewish religion. They're still defined. They don't know what is soul. Who are we? When Julius Caesar, the Roman emperor, fought against the Celts, now this is 2,000 years ago, he wrote in his book, De Bello Gallico, that they think, namely the Celtic people, your forefathers here, Celtic, Ireland has a very huge Celtic background. They think that the soul can take any form of life, from one body to another. He wrote this because it was completely a novelty to him. Yeats wrote, what did he say? Many times man lives and dies. This is Yeats. Under the Ben Bulben, there's this mountain Ben Bulben in Sligo, right? He was living under. He said many times man lives and dies in his two eternities, one of race and one of soul, and all on island knew it all. It's right there. Because the old civilizations, they know this. The modern civilizations don't have an idea. They're not spiritually not very intelligent. They're dumb as asses when it comes to spiritual life. I mean, here's a professor for, say, atomic energy. A very intelligent man. He knows everything is cause and effect. But when it comes to the church, he leaves his brain in the parking lot, basically speaking. And he believes everything that is spoken in the pulpit, although it may not make sense at all. Just like to give a reasonable answer on a reasonable question, why is it that innocent people suffer? You ask any priest. Because you have to have a very clear understanding what soul is. And we are the soul. You're not the body. You're the soul. That is our identity. Our real ego is the soul. That soul can never die. That soul always has been. The idea that we begin at the conception is a false conception. The soul always has been. We are eternal. We cannot understand eternity because our consciousness is conditioned by a body that has a beginning and an end. So we think in terms of beginning and end in the bodily concept of life. We cannot, you tell me how to understand eternity. I don't know. You cannot. You have to go beyond the material consciousness, then we can clearly see how something can be eternal, how God is eternal and we are eternal. He is a huge soul, we are small souls. He is spirit, we are spirit. We are sons of that supreme being. So all cultures, they have a clear understanding of soul. But in Western religiosity, there is no clear concept of soul, therefore they cannot understand why the innocent suffer. Nobody is innocent, not even a child. Not even a child is innocent, which I understand now. Actually, my brother's death had a huge impact on my life. That's exactly why I'm sitting here. It was the seed event, the big bang of my life. It actually kicked me out of the material concept that I was conditioned in by Western upbringing and brought me on search for truth. And we should use our brain to search for truth. We should not sit there and just buy everything that people tell us. Religion has to be reasonable. It's logic, reason, argument, everything has to be there. Otherwise, what is it? It is sentimentalism. Religion without philosophy is sentimental. It's based on sensual and mental perception. It's not real. Whereas philosophy without God is dead. Basically speaking, it has no answers. You know? Like Ernest Hemingway. He wrote in one of his books, I used to be his fan. So he said, life is a voyage from nowhere to nowhere. From nowhere to nowhere, from nowhere to nowhere, always and forever, from nowhere to nowhere to nowhere to nowhere. Which will Gandhi shot himself. I don't blame him. He says your philosophy. I don't blame him. I can relate to that. But he had no knowledge. Life is not a voyage from nowhere to nowhere. For yourself it may be if you don't have a goal of life, if you don't understand that you're a soul, that you have a huge future, a gigantic future, beyond the body, beyond pain, beyond suffering, beyond this, beyond that. There is no anxiety anymore. It is there. The spiritual world is a reality. But our access to the spiritual world is very limited. We cannot see. Yet, like Krishna says to Arjuna, only by devotion can I be seen as I am standing before you. So even if Krishna stands before us, we cannot understand because we have no appreciation, we don't have love. I mean, would you reveal your heart's secret to a person who doesn't love you? Of course not. Be very careful. He may run away with it and do something against you. So there has to be love there. And that love is systematically developed in the spiritual discipline. Adu Shraddha. Srila Rupa Goswami explained. In the beginning there's some faith. Like you come here, you have faith, sufficient faith that you know I'm not going to eat you. You're going to survive. Right? Everybody has that much faith. He's going to survive. Don't worry. He will survive. Adu Shraddha. Then sadhu sangha, you associate with spiritually elevated people. Very important. Because everything is association. Everything. If you want to take a cold iron, you put it into a fire. But the association with the fire becomes red hot. You can't stop that. You can't stop it. The iron doesn't have to do anything. It just has to stay there. So in the same way, sadhu sangha, if you associate with people who are spiritually enlightened, you become enlightened by association. Then bhajana kriya, you chant Krishna's name, any name of God. Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, it doesn't matter. They're all full of spiritual power because they are reflections of God, non-different from God. They're not, you can send Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald for the rest of your life. And you won't be able to do it. You get tired of it after 5 minutes. Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. And how long have you chant that? I chant Hare Krishna for 51 years. And I don't get tired of it because it's a transcendental mantra. It is beyond the material world. You see, so sadhu sangha, then bhajana kriya, and anatana vritti, due to association with the divine, association with the voice, you become purified from material affliction, from material conditioning, from the foolish idea that you are Irish or German or American. These are all Just words, they don't mean anything. The soul is not Catholic or Protestant or Hindu or Muslim, there's nothing to do with that. The soul is transcendental to names, nations, all these kind of different categorizing the material phenomena. Completely transcendental to it. So we are soul, we are transcendental, we always have been, we always will be, and we should go back to our real identity. Because in the material world, people live in a permanent identity crisis. That's what the young boy stands in front of the mirror, you know. I know in the Elvis Presley days, I was young, so everybody would sit in front of the mirror and put cream into his hair and then like that, and put red socks on and, you know, rambling around. Now you look at young people. In India, everybody, now the fashion is to shave your head here and then leave, people look like pineapples here. Is that true?
Some parts of India.
Pineapple. So this is simply because in search of identity. A girl resident says this, where the fashions are a natural expression, a direct expression of people living in identity crisis. They want to be this, they want to be that, this, looking this way, that way, lipstick this, and bones in the nose. Or like this, with hair like this, or this way. These are all symptoms that somebody in identity crisis. If you would understand him as soul, you would not waste his time and his money like that. He would just live very comfortable under all circumstances, because that doesn't identify with the jets of material existence. That's it. So we should rise above material consciousness. Then anatta nirviti, all impurities are destroyed. Then ruchi, we achieve a transcendental taste for chanting, for taking prasad. Then ashakti, we become separated from the material energy. Then, what is the next thing? Bhava, preliminary love of the Supreme Being. Like when the sun shines. In the beginning, there's just, if you go to the ocean, there's some red sky. And then again, the sun comes out. So that's prema. That when it comes to the platform of prema, in the Bible you hear, Jesus said, love your Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Very true. But how do we do that? There's a process, how gradually we free ourselves from material incongruence by associating with people who are spiritually enlightened. I took so much experience of my spiritual master, direct association. It makes a difference. If you want to learn how to drive a car, associate with people who drive a car. If you want to learn yoga, you associate with people who practice yoga. If you want to be a runner, you associate with people who are running. In every discipline in life, even, everything is association, to elevate yourself beyond your ordinary state. But our mind is always telling us certain things. You know you want to go to the university tomorrow, right? As an example. So you go to bed with this idea, I want to go to bed tonight, I go to bed early, did I wake up to make the bus? To be able to university, listen to lecture. Professor of philosophy is speaking all nonsense at 9 o'clock. So you come home, and what happens? You smell, the nose smells. Pizza. You go to the fridge, you open the fridge, wow, whole pizza there. The intelligence said, don't take the pizza, because if you take pizza, you cannot wake up in the morning. The mind says, oh, come on, Prthu, take it easy, baby, take it as it comes. A little bit doesn't hurt. Senses says, yes, I'm like it. So you always have this problem that the senses and the mind, they cahoots with each other. They convince you to do what actually intelligence tells you not to do. If you want to achieve something in the material world, you have to control your mind by intelligence. But people don't even know what the difference between intelligence and mind is. It's a very systematically you understand who you are and why you're doing this and doing that, because you're listening to your senses and to your mind. Like President Bush, he went to Iraq. And they asked him, why did you go to Iraq? He said, well, it feels good, do it. Of course, that's not actually the answer. The end, if Iraq would have been famous for carrots and potatoes, the American would not have gone to Iraq. Isn't it? You agree? Why? Follow the money. Oil, that's all. It's presented as liberating the world, but actually it's just exploitation money. The whole world is running on these energies: lust, anger, greed, madness, illusion, and envy. Why is one country attacking another? Envy. And lust to enjoy their resources. Why do we have this environmental crisis? It's simply because of unsettled lust. We want more and more and more. Bigger and bigger and bigger. More material energy, more cars, more money, more destruction because of lust. And the environmental crisis actually is a spiritual crisis. If you are spiritually enlightened, you need very little. You need very little. You can do this very little. You know, this is my personal experience also. You need very little actually. But if you're spiritually dissatisfied, innerly dissatisfied, the world is not big enough for you to enjoy. So people who are rich, they suffer a disease, namely of spiritual starvation. Inside they're starved to death. And therefore they need more and more and more and more to be happy. It's a drug, basically speaking. But if somebody is spiritually happy, he needs a sage lives there. You go to the Wicklow Mountains, there's this cave of St. Kevin, right, Kevin? It's right there. You can go, what is the place called? Glenlon. There's a guy there, you have to go to the water and go 6 foot up, and there's a cave. The fellow there lived on this, I think, Kevin. He lived in this cave, and his pillar was a stone. How can he do that? Because inside he was in absolute ecstasy. In absolute ecstasy. Therefore he didn't need anything. Dionysius Bacchus was a famous sage in Israel, in Greece. And he was living in an old wine barrel. It was his home. And so the king came and said, whatever you want, I give to you. Half my kingdom, take it. Why didn't you take it? He said, I just want that you go out of the sunshine. Out of the sun. I want to see you sit in the sun. He was not interested. You see Vedic sages are not interested in anything. Na dhanam, na jnanam, na sundaram. Na dhanam, I'm not interested in money. Na dhanam. Na jnanam, I'm not interested in fame. Na sundaram, I'm not interested in sex. Because they're completely transcendental to these animalistic kind of desires and desire anchoring. You're completely free of that. You know? Like Prabhupada, our spiritual master, he slept only 2 hours every night. And he was producing these books and traveling, and he was unlimited in his energy. And he said, life is ecstatic. It's a thrill, he said. My life is a thrill. He didn't have anything. You know, but materially, he didn't have anything. He could live under very simple circumstances. But he was innerly, he was an ocean of happiness. So if our happiness increases on the platform of the soul, then we don't need much material enjoyment. Our material enjoyment goes right down. We settle these basements, these basic things. And so that's the way of spiritual life. Don't be surprised that priests have so many difficulties sometimes to practice spiritual life. It's all due to the fact there's a lack of spiritual enjoyment. Spiritually poor. Then you have so many desires. You try to enjoy the world instead of going within and going back to the sunshine. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Andhakara. Krishna says, or Scripture says, Krishna is like sun. Maya is like darkness. Wherever there's sun, there's no question of darkness. Now if you say Krishna, or you say Rama, or Jehovah, or Yahweh, or Allah, it doesn't make a difference. There's only one religion. And that is to revive our relationship with God. That's religion. In fact, the word religion, we all know the word religion, comes from the Latin word re means again, like reunion. You unite again with your friends, it's a reunion. Re and legare. Legare is from Latin, means to connect, to reconnect. That what reconnects a human being to the Supreme, that's called religion. And it's interesting that the word says religion, reconnect. That means you have to reconnect. We were connected before. We were connected. We were Adam and Eve who lived in paradise. And we ate from the forbidden tree, and now we are here, in downtown. In all that rain, and all the wind in winter, and the sun comes out once in a month. And I've been in India, 55 degrees, I go mad. Sometimes it's too hot, sometimes it's too cold, sometimes you're hungry, sometimes you ate too much, sometimes you have all the food in front of you and somebody takes it away. All of a sudden you can't eat anymore because of that ulcer, something, a little defect in your mouth. Who doesn't have difficulties? Who doesn't suffer? You don't have to. We have to because we choose to live in a world which is based on suffering. Abraham Amuganaloka, Tuna Avatino Aduna, Mamukete Tutantia, one who from how they're all places that birth, old age, and takes place. You before suffering, birth, painful for the child, he loses his memory almost. Because it says in our Vedic scriptures from 9 months on, children can understand things and listen. They're quite open in their intelligence. But then to the pain of the birth that they're driven through this small channel into the outer world, they lose all memory of previous lives. Birth painful for the mother, birth painful for the child cries and he comes out. Then as a child, I fell from a stair one time. One time my father moved some support of a tree, it fell right on my head. And I had to go to the hospital. I mean, I just took a shower just 6 weeks ago, I took a shower in Spain, on our farm. And I leaned, because I washed my head with all that soap, so I had to lean to something. And then the wall was only this thick, and I fell down on the rim of the toilet like that. And I broke 4 ribs. And I was lying on the ground for 10 minutes speechless. I didn't know what to say. I was off. All painful, And this happens again and again. Now we fit. What happens tomorrow, you don't know. You can get into a huge accident. So this world is a place of suffering. Dugalam Ashafati. Full of pain and everything is temporary. There is some happiness there. It's also there. It's like you're living on a dunking chair. Dunking chairs. In the Middle Age, there was someone who was condemned in a dunking chair. It's a chair on a whip like this, and they dunk him into water, and then when he's just about drowning, he lifted him up, and he could breathe again. But before he was happily breathing, he goes back again into the water, and this is material life. There's happiness, there's stress, you like it, you don't like it, it's wonderful, it's very bad, I can't take it anymore. My wife is giving me so much trouble. My wife is beautiful, everything is fine. The kids are going crazy and destroying the house practically. We had a wonderful house in Carlton House, beautiful house. It was owned by the Guinness family originally. And then somebody puts this heat up there, Deva Prasta, and leaves a mattress was there, 4 matches. It bent over as soon as he left the room. 10 minutes later, the whole house was in flames. I went to this hospital in Spain, in Madrid. After 4 days I got out. We got a bill, 3,200 euros. Fortunately, I had friends in India who helped me to sort it out in minutes, practically. But this is a material world, one catastrophe after the other. So we don't have to have this. We don't. The goal of life, people don't know what is the goal of life. Until we do Swapaka, mission, they don't know what is the goal of life. And mission is the goal of life. If we understand this, it's the goal of life, if we use our time or intelligence to find out about that goal, we become deathless. We don't die anymore. The body dies, but we know we are not the body. We are beyond the body. We have to separate our body, our physical, spiritual consciousness from material consciousness. Dhira Sataranurti, a person on that level, he doesn't die. So our spiritual master, I spoke about before, one day before he says, you open your bodies. When he died, just minutes before, he said, everything moving and non-moving, There's nothing but Krishna. There's this consciousness called Krishna consciousness. And I was standing right there, and he said, Hare Krishna. He left the body. There was no fear. He was lucid up to the last moment and gave this wonderful instruction that whatever we see ultimately in evidence is nothing but power. And we see suffering, enjoyment, or interaction ultimately controlled by that. Everything is better. Lift your hand before God. You cannot see God because you're not the body. You're not the body. Then why do you scratch yourself if you're not the body? Because the soul penetrates the body with consciousness. That's the only connection between the body and the soul is consciousness. You see? So I know I'm not the body. I'm aware of that. So my body, right now, to be honest with you, I have an itch here, right here. So the hand goes up. How do I do this if I'm not the body? Man proposes, God disposes. Der Mensch denkt, Gott lenkt in German. The human. So Lord tells the material nature, please lift up the hand of this Prthu goddess. And then the hand goes up, like this. Within split seconds, this happens. We are not the body, we are not the car. The bodies are, we are the passenger. We are not the driver. The driver is the Supreme Lord. We are the passenger. The driver will follow the instructions of the passenger. Bring me to Fingers or bring me to where? Donnybrook. The driver will listen to that. So we can choose. And Krishna facilitates our life every second. You see? But we are not the doer. We're just desiring. I want to have this, I want to have that. Nityananam Chaitanya Chaitananam. The Supreme Lord fulfills the desires of all living entities, even bad. So that we learn in due course of time what is useful, what is not useful. You don't want to read by hearing, best thing is to read Bhagavad Gita, you read various scriptures. If you don't want to do that, tough luck. And you have to learn the hard way. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Anybody? Yeah.
Is the soul part of God, or is it like a separate entity to God?
Huh?
Is the soul part of God, or is it a separate entity to God?
Is the soul part of God or is it separated?
Yeah, is it a separate?
We are expansions of God. You know, just like the Son is the expansion of the Father. So we are actually part and parcel of God. We are one with God in energy. He's spiritual, we are spiritual. We are different as individuals. All the hand is part of the body. And the hand is only happy if it feeds the stomach. If it feeds the stomach, it gets all the energy. One time the stomach said to the hands, why you have to work so hard? I'm not doing anything. He spoke to the feet, why do we work so hard? I don't do anything. So they heard this message and they just going to strike. The feet went on to strike, the hands went on to strike. And after some time the stomach felt, I'm so empty, I'm so weak. So our happiness is if we serve. You have to serve the devil. There's a song of Bob Dylan. Either you serve the devil, the material world, or you serve God, but you have to serve somebody. Because serving is the nature, the dharma of the soul. We are supposed to be servants of God eternally. In the spiritual world, everybody does that. Everybody serves God in the spiritual world. That's why Jesus said, let the will of God be done, as in heaven, so on earth. Because everybody is serving in the spiritual world. If you don't want to serve God, you have to serve the government, the state, Mr. Putin, you have to serve your wife, you have to serve a dog. You're serving all day in some compassion. You have to serve your body. The body cries for food. You ran into the next bar. Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. There was a song by, who was it? Because the senses were driving him to the bar. So we are serving the tongue, we are serving the gentleman, we are serving the wife, we are serving the dog, we are serving all the time. The human being is serving because you have to serve. Either you serve yourself or you serve God. If you serve God, you don't have to come here. Why should you be in the material world if you don't have material desires? As long as you have material desires, we are here. We create our own destiny. You know, and you don't even know. Now I feel right now that I saw you did like this. How do you do that? Because Krishna understands that the soul is conscious over your body, and you would like to relieve yourself from this itch. So Krishna calls the devas, hello, this is Krishna, can you just lift the hand of such and such? Yes, Bhagavan. This is how that works. You're not the doer, you desire. You're not the driver, you're the passenger. You're not the car, the body. You're the soul. It's a huge philosophy. If you understand this really intricately, the Krishna conscious philosophy, absolutely fascinating. Fascinating. So, yes. Is this answering your question, someone?
Yeah. I have just a quick follow-up question. Why is there a material world?
Yeah, why is there a sandbox? The kids want to play. The father creates a sandbox. So kids are playing. Why does he create a sandbox? So that kids ultimately get so tired of the sandbox. They want to do more. So material is like a sandbox for people who are primitive, spiritually primitive. You know, they can, let's try this, let's try that, and let's play this. You build a castle, you build a castle out of sand as a kid. You think you own this castle, and then time comes and washes your castle away at the time of death latest. Whatever you build will be destroyed. You may be very rich, you may be very famous, very powerful, whatever you have will be destroyed to nothing by the time of death. You see, so we work very hard. What kind of intelligence is that? We work so hard and we know that you're going to lose everything? Why are you working so hard? Whatever you have in the material world, you will lose. Your kids, everything. So why not focusing on your eternal destination, on spirituality? That's smart. That's progressive. It's not progressive to try to be materially successful. It's not progressive. It solves the problem temporarily, but it doesn't solve the problem of the soul being in the material world. It doesn't solve that problem. It's the biggest problem. You go down this road, you cannot make any mistakes. You go from success to success in spiritual life. You have a future. People don't have a future. They don't know what they're living for. What is the meaning of life? Keith Richard was asked, his guitarist of the Rolling Stones, said, what is the meaning of life? He said, to live. Anybody who says something different, you're a fool. What foolish thing? Vyasadeva, Srila Vyasadeva, Shukadeva Goswami, Vyasadeva could foresee thousands of years before. He has this vision to understand the age of Kali. He would tell you, no. The goal of life is to return back to God. That's the goal of life. But they don't know that. They think become material prosperous is the goal of life. And then die, or they shoot themselves, or whatever. Thank you very much. Any other question? Did you find this interesting, this discussion?
You mentioned about turning back to the God, and again, some time back you also mentioned about realizing your soul, the soul realization. So, these two, how do you see this? They're two different concepts, or one follow the other?
I didn't get it.
Okay. My question, you just mentioned looking back to the God. The goal of the life is to look back to the God. Okay. Some time back you also mentioned about realizing the soul. You need to come in realization with your soul. So are these two concepts in different.
There's material concept and spiritual concepts, two concepts. One leads to light, one leads to darkness. Material consciousness leads to darkness. It's like a drug. You become addicted. Ultimately, you end up on the street. Yeah. All your poverty, whatever money you may have, you will lose. Material improvement is a symptom for lack of spiritual intelligence. When we talk about career, we talk about millions of years of careers, not just 20, 30, 50 years that people work so hard for. We talk about millions, in fact, unlimited time. If you enter a phase where you cannot die, then you will be eternally. There are no dentists in the spiritual world. There are no chirurgs in the spiritual world. There's no businessman who's ripping you off. There's no disease, there's no nothing. So we should use our intelligence. This is intelligence. Is what is the best way for me to live? How to have the best future? The best future is obviously not in the material world. One world war after the other. People never stop warring. Adam and Eve had two sons. One was Abel, and the other was Cain. And Cain became envious of Abel, and he killed him. It's just in the second generation the murder started. From there, one war after another, and famines were there, and diseases were there, and fire was there. I mean, the whole history of world is written in blood. People thought after the First World War we had learned enough. Second World War. In our town in Germany, Kassel, it's a huge industrial city, which is full of making steel. They produced a Tiger tank, Hitler's Tiger tank, very famous tank. And the whole city was turned to ashes. They all died in the flames. The whole city, something like 500,000 people, died in the flames. And after the war, they got together and they made a vow on the marketplace. Never again we will do that. Now they're building the leopard tank. They don't learn anything. And that town will be destroyed again. It's just a matter of time because you produce something that creates violence. You will experience violence in your life. It's unavoidable. So mankind is foolish. That's why Krishna says you need to take knowledge. Go to the light, don't stay in darkness. Use your life in the best possible way. Namely, of course you have to eat, of course you have to sleep, of course you have to maintain your family, but side by side develop your spirituality. That's intelligence. All right? Shall we have a little kirtan for the end? Let's sing Hare Krishna. How are you learning again for tonight? Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 1, 2, 3. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna,
Thank you very much.
Haribol, thank you very much. That was a wonderful class, and that was so nice to have you here again. I mean, you've been here since 1978, although you said you were in India for the last 30 years. You were in Ireland from 78 to 92, which is nearly 15 years.
Yeah.
And you brought so many people to Krishna consciousness in the meantime, at that time, and subsequently. So thank you so much for coming back again. Haribol.
It's a pleasure to be in Ireland again, back in the old sod.
Yeah. So we're going to continue on with some chanting from till about 9 o'clock. So maybe I was going to ask Jayananda, would you continue some